The separation of church and state.
Puritan settlers who arrived on the shores of America as early as 1609 began the first form of public schools as we know them today. They were public in that they were mandated by the governing body to serve all, but they held the belief that the main purpose for education was a means of being able to read the Bible to receive salvation.
As the country developed and the colonies grew and separated from Great Britain, education also evolved. Although religion was still considered an important part of the curriculum, the developing interests of the colonies required additional subjects in school in order to build and maintain commerce. Education also became a tool to establish and promote concepts of freedom, liberty, and democracy, as well as responsibilities for becoming a good citizen of the new country as described in the Constitution.
In 1776, the Constitution was written. The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Originally, this applied only to the federal government, while many states continued to grant certain religious denominations privileges. For example, a number of states had effectively established churches when the First Amendment was ratified, with some remaining into the early 19th century.
However, it was Thomas Jefferson who first used the phrase separation of church and state in 1802. In his letter addressed to the Danbury Baptist Association in Connecticut, Jefferson wrote, "I contemplate with sovereign reverence that the act of the whole American people, which declared that their legislature should make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall of separation between church and state."
The landmark decision of Everson v. Board of Education in 1947 marked a turning point in the interpretation of the religion clause in the First Amendment. The case concerned a school district that provided reimbursement to parents of both public and private schooled children, which included parochial school children, for taking public transportation to school.
The case caused a new interpretation of the Establishment Clause in the First Amendment. It was Justice Hugo Black who said, "The Establishment of Religion Clause of the First Amendment means at least this. Neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church. Neither can pass laws which aid religion." In the words of Jefferson, the clause against establishment of religion by law was intended to erect a wall of separation between church and state. All of the other justices agreed.
Because of this new interpretation of the Establishment Clause, it was determined that public schools may not endorse or appear to be endorsing religious activities in school-sponsored programs. Lemon v. Kurtzman, 1971, remains the leading case on the Establishment Clause as a standard to guide the courts in deciding when a school district's action violates the First Amendment. It established a three-part test for determining if an action of government violates First Amendment's separation of church and state based on the following criteria. 1. The action must have a secular purpose. 2. Its primary purpose must not be to inhibit or to advance religion. And 3. There must be no excessive entanglement between religion and government. Two additional tests are frequently utilized to determine constitutionality. The coercion test, based on the 1992 case of Lee v. Wiseman, examines religious practice to see to what extent, if any, pressure is applied to force individuals to participate. The endorsement test, based on the 1989 case of Allegheny County v. the ACLU, examines a practice to determine if it unconstitutionally endorses religion by conveying a message that religion is favored, preferred, or promoted over other beliefs.
So what impacts do these rulings have on creating family and community partnerships? Schools are developing positive relationships with religious organizations to help provide services for at-risk students. Controversy undoubtedly arises. While the religious institutions must follow public school guidelines and maintain its own ideals, schools and parents must ensure that faith-based groups are not imposing a particular religion or belief. It must be understood, however, that each individual will come with his or her own set of beliefs, dictated by personal experiences and influences.
As you can imagine, school administration must tread carefully regarding students' religious expression within the school environment and what could be considered students forcing their religious beliefs on others. Recently in the news, you may have heard about the Texas cheerleaders and their families who sued their school district after their superintendent forbid them from creating football game run-through banners with Christian scripture. The superintendent said his decision was in response to a letter he received calling the banners unconstitutional. What ensued was a battle in court and polarizing social media campaigns on Facebook. The court ended up allowing the students to continue using Bible verse because the students were the ones initiating their use and they were created after school and not using school funds.
It is advised that educators and administrators draft a religious liberty policy that guides any cooperative agreement with a particular group. The following set of standards have been used in Oklahoma City to navigate school-church partnerships successfully. Number 1, schools have to be neutral. They can't be in any kind of cooperative agreement that favors a particular religious group. Number 2, religious references are not predominant if a church room is being used for a school program. Number 3, no preaching by religious group volunteers. Number 4, students can't be rewarded or penalized for participating or not in a particular activity with religious volunteers. Concerns also regarding congressional initiatives and referendums, such as Referendum 74, which legalizes gay marriage, has argued separation of church and state. Local ads rejecting the referendum voice individuals who are concerned about the influences these changes will have on our educational system. If marriage, for example, is to be redefined, those who reject R74 fear educators may now teach marriage in a way which may not align with their family's religious beliefs. So what are the rights of those families to opt out of curriculum due to religious beliefs? School officials state that curriculum should not go through significant changes, continuing to support diversity and tolerance, but not a particular family structure. With the recent passing of R74, it remains a hot topic that is to be unraveled today.
The social impact of the separation of church and state has been an interesting one for partnerships between public schools, families, and the community. Some feel religious conflicts and fears are tearing our schools apart. Stephen Carter, a Yale professor, said, "From the point of view of religiously devout people whose visions of reality are influenced by faith, the public square can seem a cold, suspicious, and hostile place." With a little proactive effort, administrators can mitigate the fears and be better able to serve all students and the families from which they come. Bridge Builders, an organization working to create common ground, believes schools should listen and respect the concerns of religious parents and students, and communicate that this is a safe place for children with religious values. Also, teachers can say things such as, "I know that everyone doesn't see this the same way, and for many, religious faith is a factor in that. This would be a good area to discuss with your parents or church if you have one." The simple statement can affirm those who hold such views without putting down those who don't. An example of response to parental input is evident in the greater Seattle area. Local Muslim families made their voices heard about the need for their children to pray 5 times daily and miss large amounts of class time on Fridays. Many schools now offer a separate room for Muslim students to pray in. However, some wonder whether the needs of other students, such as Christians, Jews, and Buddhists, are being accommodated. Schools need to be mindful about extending the option for these other religious groups to practice non-teacher-led prayer as well. A genuine, religion-neutral system respecting the separation of church and state is not a celebration of atheism or of non-religion. It is a forum where religious issues can be discussed, appropriate expression allowed, and where students who hold religious values and those who don't are not belittled and feel safe to be as they are.